famous LIR.com, 927 LIR.com, and YouTube. I am John Kalaboukas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zubulake, Zoobie. So we've had a very interesting week and a half, because we actually have not been on for about a week and a half. So a lot of interesting series, both winter sports. Listen, the Knicks, you have to give them credit. I mean, they are playing with half a team. I mean, and they just totally took it to the Pacers last night. It was really fun to watch. And that's the way they win. The way you saw them win last night, that's the way they win. When they start passing the ball around and distributing it to everyone, and playing tough defense and playing rough and tumble basketball, they win. When they play, I mean, they conceivably could have wrapped up the series last night if it wasn't for that lucky shot in game 3.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you're a little all over the map with that, but I agree with you on like the gutty performance by the Knicks. Credit them. The iron six or seven guys that they have to use because of the injuries. Brunson, he's making a name for himself in New York. So it's been a great run. It's a roller coaster. And you're right, we haven't spoken to everybody in it's almost 10 days. And a lot has happened, and a lot of it is a roller coaster. And it's a roller coaster of emotions. And depending on what day you're going to be doing your show, if you do a weekly like we do, you got to get lucky on the timing, because we could have been waxing poetic about how great the Rangers are. And the next thing you know, the fan base, and you can understand it, John, because we've lived it, as we joked last week, right? 30 years without a championship of all our teams. And there are a lot of crossovers between the Rangers and the Knicks, of course, and a little bit of the Jet-Met combination with those two franchises.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the only team that's won a championship in 2009 are the Yankees, and that's about it. I mean,
Yeah,
so they
right. And the Giants,
yeah,
and the Giants.
and the Giants.
Right.
Right.
So there's two winning franchises in the tri-state, and let's face it, lately they haven't won anything, and the Giants have been really a bad team. So it's not like the rest of the fan bases in this area have been winning. So there is this deep anguish at the Ranger fans that will switch over quickly, and then we'll go right back to the Knicks, of course. But the Rangers are suffering. Their fans, I want to talk about their fans. They're suffering from this catastrophic mentality. When you lose a game, you're still up 3-2. My prediction was 7 games. It may take 7. And it just shows the difference between the Knicks and the Rangers, and the results the Knicks had versus the Rangers' results. And hopefully, maybe Lavalette should have the Knick game as part of his pregame with the Rangers, and showing some highlights about how these guys gutted it out. And a guy we haven't mentioned yet, and I'll let you take over after this, but Isaiah Hartenstein, man, that freaking Stan Van Gundy, John, having to listen to that guy, how painful is it? But anyway, Hartenstein was unbelievable last night. What the guy has made himself a boatload of cash.
Oh yeah, and the Knicks, as you know, I've been saying it, need to sign him, and they need to sign Anunoby, because you can't depend on Robinson. Robinson is listen, he's great defensively, but he has stone hands. You see how much better the offense moves when Hartenstein is out there. He's a great passer. I mean, he should definitely be the starting center next year. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, come on. There's no question here.
It's not. There's no question. Move on. And Robinson's going to have to play off the bench unless they can somehow dump that contract on somebody.
Right. And the Rangers, getting back to the Rangers, So, as someone who doesn't watch every game, but I've been watching all the playoff games, they had a chance to close it out, and
Yep.
and I don't know what is with this team. They make the dumbest penalties alive. I mean, every single time. I mean, they're professionals. You know that they're going to see when you're trying to trip someone or trying to whack someone. I mean, and really at the worst time, especially with the overtime game, they should have won that game. There was no doubt in my mind. They should have finished off that. I think when the Canes scored what with a minute 36 to go
Oh,
in.
Lindgren took the penalty with
Yeah,
like 2:30 to go in the game, and
stupid, stupid, stupid. They had the
John,
game wrapped up, and then they scored a minute later, and then I mean, really dumb. And then this last game, I think I texted you. They were sleepwalking. I don't know how they got away with it for 2 periods. They played terribly, and they were still up 1-0. And I'm like, they are lucky that these guys haven't. And then, of course, everything caved in the third period because the
well, they try to
Canes.
right. They, they try to win 1-0. They try to win 1-0. They thought they could win 1-0 with
Oh,
Igor, and it was a huge mistake. John, this is what I was worried about going into the season, the makeup of this squad, why I was down on them. And but now the one, the people, everybody's getting so down on them, and I just think they have resolve. I think this group has resolve, and they are going to bounce back. And if they don't win Game 6, they're going to win Game 7. And not the conventional way to get to 7, but if you win and advance. And the good news is Florida did not win and clinch that series, and Boston's
right.
going to force them to go to a Game 6. So that's good news because it's an attrition battle, right? It really is. Or both the NBA as the
Yeah,
Knicks
yeah.
have proven. Yeah, just like we'll go back and forth because it's fun to talk about the positive right now because we are taping on Wednesday, the 15th of May. And thanks everybody for tuning in via all our platforms, YouTube, Spotify, and the LIR website. So we really appreciate it. As always, uh, feel free to comment. Please add comments. We're going to talk about anything you throw in the comments. Absolutely. Please do
Hmm.
that. Subscribe to the episodes and please like the episodes because both those things drive the algorithm. And it's a word of mouth show. And if you're enjoying the content, I hope you are. But please, we need the support to kind of keep it going. Right, John?
Yes, we do, and we've been getting comments and feedback, and it's so funny with the Knicks. I get so many texts from so many different people who listen to this show, especially during the game. It's like Grand Central Station on my phone. It's
Hey,
amazing.
John, speaking of text, you got to give me a little credit. Did you notice the time I sent the text to you last night about Scott Foster? Did you notice when I sent that to you? I don't know if you noticed
Yeah,
it.
I did. I did. I did. I did.
So I texted John last night and I said, every time I watch a game with Scott Foster as the official, I end up seeing his face the whole night. And this was, folks, literally the first time they showed him in detail. The first time. After that, John, they were joking about it on the telecast, how
Yes, they
much
were.
that these guys were out there. I mean, the airtime for the officials with all these reviews, it's horrible. And the players themselves, every time there's a close call, they do the twirly bird. And then incredibly, the replay, they're reversing to me obvious fouls that they called in the court correctly, and they're reversing them. I have
Yep.
no idea what's going on. What's your opinion about that?
Well, first of all, if the players, like you said, do the twirly bird or start yapping, they need to get hit with a T immediately because it is so disrespectful. I mean, I don't know why they're holding with the. I would just tee them up and and when they see that, they'll shut up very very quickly.
But John,
With
also,
Foster, I think he's going for some job in Hollywood or something. I mean, you see him with his hair and nice gray hair. He's tan. He's looking right into the monitor, make sure that he's direct. I mean, it's funny with him. Some of these guys come in like blurry, and and you can't hear them very well. He makes sure that the sound is great. He looks great. I mean, it's like a production with him.
Hey, it's funny because his name popped up a lot in the Donaghy stuff with the referee fixing, right?
Oh,
Not
really?
that
Okay.
Foster fixed games. I'm not
Okay.
insinuating that, but his name was mentioned in that series, and and I've seen a lot in reported about the crossover, the amount of games they worked together. Not that Foster was doing it, but he knew that his partner was doing it. They insinuated that. So he does have a history of the league. He's been in the league like 30 years.
That there was a you know how on YouTube like they have these mini videos that pop up for like 30
Sure.
seconds,
Yeah, of
okay?
course. Yeah.
So they had one with Donaghy talking and it was Foster was with him and some other referee that Iverson Allen Iverson was giving them a really hard time and mouthing off to them. So they decided as a group of referees that they're going to call every time he's dribbling, he has a
Yeah,
way of
the fine.
carrying the ball.
Yeah, right.
They were calling every single
Yeah,
walk of
yeah.
his, and they weren't calling fouls on him. And then Iverson went up to Donaghy. I think it was midway through the game, and he goes, okay. He goes, when is this going to end? He goes, what's going to end? He goes, you know what you're doing, and they both laughed, and he went through
That
that
was
for a
it.
couple of games with them, believe it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now that's actually a great documentary about Donaghy in his referee situation there. That's a great one. And also, they're pumping that Sackett one every night with the Ranger games. So I can't wait to get ESPN
You haven't
Plus
seen it?
back. No, because I told you that last time. I dropped ESPN Plus, but I'm going to get it
Oh,
back in
okay.
the fall for college football.
Okay.
I hate to give ESPN extra money, John.
Yeah, but take them up on like the 30-day free trial and then cancel it.
Well,
That's what
I
they
think
do.
I've been a member so many times already. I kind of lose that privilege now.
Yeah,
They
put
know me.
yeah, put your wife Karen as
Yeah, I could change it. Yeah, that's true. But it's okay. They'll still be available. But
yeah.
fall's not that far away, John. Even though maybe we'll see it one day of spring. My God.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
All right. Well,
So
again, back to the game. I mean, Brunson, we're not even talking about. It's just what an unbelievable effort, right? His whole foot thing. Is it a foot? Is it a groin? Is it a calf? I don't know what the heck the problem is. But what a phenomenal effort again from him.
he was moving around very nicely. The
He
game
was.
before and in game three, you could see he was hobbling. Last night, he looked like he was back to normal. You have to give credit for with Deuce McBride. I thought that was a very good move for Thibodeau to bring him in because they needed defense, and he stuck to Halliburton. As I
Yeah.
said, we need someone to stick to him, next to his hip and not let him move. The guy only had 9 points.
No, great.
That
Yeah.
put him
Yep.
on him. Put him on him.
Yep.
Uh, bring in Achua. We've been saying that throughout the entire series. Now they're forced to. Now they're
Right.
forced to. As I expected with Adenobi, you will not see him. You're not going to see him in the next game, and you will not see him in a game seven. There's no way. If he has a pulled hamstring, they keep calling it strained. If he has a pulled hamstring, you'll have to pray that if the Knicks get into Eastern Conference Finals with a little bit of the break they may get out of that, that maybe he can play there. But
Yeah.
I'm
No,
telling
that's a good
everyone,
point.
don't depend on him being there. And the fact is, if the Knicks make it to the Eastern Conference Finals with half of a team right now, that's a big accomplishment. I'm just upset because they would have easily, if they were full strength, they would have easily beaten the Celtics. Because I've been watching the Celtics and the Cavaliers, and the Cavaliers almost pulled it off with two main players injured out. It was amazing. I mean, I'm telling you, the Celtics are a very, very vulnerable team, but they are lucky because everyone they're playing has been hurt. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah,
The
well,
Heat hurt. The best player hurt. Cleveland hurt. Nick, if they play the Knicks,
yeah.
four players hurt.
Well,
Unbelievable.
they've moved beyond Randall. We can't use Randall. Every
All
team
right.
gets injuries, but you're
But,
right. They were devastated. They've been devastated.
Anunoby, Robinson, I
Of
mean,
course.
even Bogdanovich, he was
Yeah, it
starting to
hurt.
get his feel for the team. So
Well,
now we have
actually,
Alec Burks, which
he
has been
stepped
a
up.
very big surprise. Yeah.
He has stepped up. Give him credit. I was just going to mention, he took the words right out of my mouth. They've been forced to use these guys, and they're coming through. Gutsy performance, all good. Probably worthwhile because he kind of got out of the Knicks in these other games, but there's no doubt the biggest story. Talk about the kibosh on the T-Wolves. Old Zuby over here, what a great job, took them out after talking a little. Why didn't I take the T-Wolves to win the West? And they haven't won since.
That listen, the Nuggets have been playing tremendous basketball. I've been watching those games. The Joker, that's the why he's the MVP. He's taken over the games. The guy's phenomenal. He can't jump even. I mean, you and I can jump higher than him, and we're much older than him. But man, can that guy play? I mean, he has eyes behind his head. He reminds me a lot of Larry Bird. I mean, as far as
And
athleticism and just the thought process, guy's amazing. He's
no,
amazing.
he's got great basketball instincts. Another thing, we laugh. I mean, all the guys who were taking shots at him that he didn't deserve the MVP after they lost the first two games. Amazing that all these guys coming out of the woodwork, and I mean, there is something behind it too. I won't get into it, but he just proves them wrong big time. Just unbelievable. And then the other, I have not watched. Have you been watching OKC Dallas? Is that what's that 2-2?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Have
Uh,
you been watching or no?
that yeah, I have been watching it, and
Wow,
Dallas actually should have been up 3 games to 1 now.
really?
They yeah. Uh, Luca, he just did not play well at all. I think he is probably injured because he doesn't look right to me at all. Um, the Dallas had it wrapped up, and OKC came back and they ended up winning it. But the funny thing is, Luca was shooting foul shots. He made the first one. He missed the second one. It would have tied the game. It was like a minute to go. Would have tied. He missed it. And then OKC ended up, I believe, hitting a 3-pointer. And then they went down again. They missed, and then they ended up fouling. That's why there was a 5-point difference. But it was really a 1-point difference at the end. Dallas really blew that game. They blew that game. And
Well,
Luka has not been playing well in this series at all.
okay. Well, but at least they're all going deep, except for Boston, right? They got a 3-1 lead. Everything else, obviously, the Knicks now up 3-2. And the Knicks are playing what night? Yeah, this is the one night of the week, or the last 2 weeks, it seems. There's no game Wednesday, so the Rangers are tomorrow and the Knicks are Friday, or when are they playing
Friday.
Friday?
Yeah, the Knicks are playing Friday, and then if it goes to a game 7, 3:30 in the afternoon on Sunday.
Yeah, I have a f- I this I just you don't know what's going on with Brunson, but I know people go lose their minds on this, but they would have done themselves a favor sitting Brunson a little bit. He somehow has made this recovery, John. That's great modern medicine. I'm telling you, it's pretty impressive, I have to say. And so if he's playing it, as long as he's playing at the level he was playing, then they're going to try to win that game, obviously, and end it in 6. But there is part of me, it's almost like if they get down and they're in that end of the first half, I would consider resting guys. What do you think?
Yeah, they did it in game 4. You may
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
It,
okay.
cortisone shots only work
Mhm.
so far. So
Right.
whatever they're doing for his foot, uh,
But they've
I'm
come
all
a
for it.
long way with a lot of rehabs that they can do, and obviously old-fashioned, reliable painkillers are still deployed. Don't get me wrong. The players got to understand the risks when they're doing stuff like this. So, um, in 2024, there's no excuses with these doctors and these players understanding what they're doing when it comes to painkillers, right? So,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope, Matt, as opposed to years ago, like you said, everybody and their mother was getting shot up. Let's face it. And a lot of guys, unfortunately, ended up getting addicted.
Yeah. The funny thing is when you hear about the medical updates with Adenobi, he's in the pool. Now he's out of the pool, and maybe he'll start running soon. And like he's not running anywhere. If he's been doing work in the pool, and he was doing it for what the past week, and he just got out yesterday, he the man is not. I try to tell everyone the man. You will not see him in Game 6
No
because
chance.
they are not going to risk him making a really bad tear.
Yeah. John,
It'd be a really absurd. It's
they'll
it's it's
be
a shame because we really should have that game last night should have been closing them out. We could have rested. But with the NBA is really strange. If the series end earlier, the the Eastern Conference Finals or West will start earlier. They don't have a set day. So if they, the Eastern Conference Finals could start on the 20th, which is, what is that, Monday? Let's
mhm.
see, Friday. Yeah, Monday. If if if
If
they
the
end
teams
now,
are
if they
ready.
end in Game 6.
Yeah, if the
Yeah.
teams are ready, they're going to play. The other round, the other side will catch up by the end anyway. If they get, sometimes they get lucky where right where that side ends early and it matches up. Otherwise, someone's going to get extra time going into the finals, which they like that better, right? Because then they can milk it out. Yeah, they do a pretty good job with that. I mentioned Van Gundy quickly, John, but I mean, it really is just it really is so as a really we're hardcore sports fans to lose our announcers in these playoff situations. One thing we hadn't talked about, and we ripped to shreds the infamous NHL telecast with the names all over. Have you noticed that I think one of them is still holding on with the one name? I don't know. It was ESPN. So some genius, said, okay, five is ridiculous. So they still like fought like you can't even imagine because it took them 2 years to implement this stupid thing, and then they went to one name. So thankfully, I think TNT is not doing any name, but ESPN is still kind of flashing it one name. Anyway,
The funny thing is they're not even consistent now of when they're using it. I notice that most of the time it's either in overtime or towards the end of the game. They're not using it in the beginning of the game, the middle of the game. There's no continuity to it at all. It's almost like, hey Joe, flip on the switch with the name. We have to do it at least one time a game. I mean, they have no consistency at all with it, and thank
maybe it's with
God.
the contract. I don't know. Maybe it's in the contract. But thankfully, John, the powers that be maybe watch a little Bouk and Zoobie on YouTube and noticed that there was some complaints out there. So I'm glad that's gone. The winter sports, it's just been fantastic in the tri-state. It's been a roller coaster, like I said. The Knicks on a high, the Rangers on a low. I think the Knicks are going to go seven, and I think unfortunately the Rangers may be going seven. We
Wow.
may have two game sevens, John. That was going to be pretty good weekend coming up.
Yeah, a lot of excitement. A lot of excitement.
Well,
Actually,
hopefully I'm wrong.
Alexander and his dad actually went to the game last night,
Oh, okay. There you go.
and I texted them saying, that they saw a great game, and they were just saying how wild the crowd was. The crowd
Yeah.
was
The
great.
atmosphere has been great. The Nick games have been spectacular. They really have. The Ranger fans, they're getting a little more of a bourgeois crowd at the Garden for hockey for some reason. The bourgeois, right? Is that the right word? Where it's like only they make a lot of noise when they're winning. I just don't like the front running fans. I mean, when the team needs you when they're losing, that's when the team needs you. They
Yeah.
need the support when you're ahead, when you're behind. I'm sorry, and that's what what fans can do. And another thing is a pet peeve of mine, John. And this started, I don't know when this started, but for a guy who's used to go to a lot of games, when they give you those dumb towels
Oh,
to wave,
oh,
all that does is it impede your ability to see the game with all these people waving their towels and they're not even making noise. You want your crowd making noise, clapping, screaming, not waving some dumb towel that gets in somebody's freaking vision of the game. I'm
yeah.
sorry, it's a pet peeve. I can't take it. It's awful.
They and it seems to be not just in hockey, in so many different sports. I
Everywhere.
mean, if you remember when we went to the World Series with the Mets, that they had those stupid things, and
Like,
we were
yeah, like,
getting upset with the fans in front of us doing it.
right, right. I told the guy to stop waving the flag. He thought I was no, the flag, the towel. He thought I was nuts. I'm like, I'm trying to watch the game. I'm not coming here to watch your towel in my face in the line of vision. I don't understand. Is that so hard for people to understand? We're trying to
I remember
watch
that.
the event. Oh
I
my
was waiting. I was waiting for Zuby to get thrown out of City Field
God.
for harassing a fellow fan.
Well, yeah, I could tell that the old story about I did get thrown out of Shea Stadium. Do you know that story, John? That's a
No,
play.
no, no.
Oh well, I did. Yeah, it was. I'll tell it right now. I was lucky enough to get really good seats for a game, so we sat behind the old cage, right behind the plate, right where the umpires used to walk through. And there was an umpire. There was two guys. I think the Ed McSherry. Do you remember Ed McSherry? He's a
Yeah,
very large man. And this guy Dick Stello. Do you remember Dick Stello as a umpire?
I don't remember him, but
He had like
McSherry,
bushy
I know.
black hair with the bushy black mustache, right?
Okay.
So it was during a rain delay, and they were walking through the underneath there, and people. I was just standing there because that's where we were sitting. We were leaning over, and people were cursing and yelling and screaming at the umpires. The next, 10 minutes later, Dick Stello it starts arguing with my cousin who was at the game. And he literally took his teeth out. He had false teeth. It was the funniest thing ever. Like he wanted to fight my cousin. And I was just there as an innocent bystander. The police end up showing up and they actually threw us out of the game. But it was it was crazy. It wasn't like my cousin wasn't really that abusive at all. I was saying nothing. And then we get thrown out of Shea Stadium. So there's my getting ejected from a stadium story.
But why did the umpire become so upset if your cousin wasn't saying much to him?
Well, the
He
thing
had to
was they
say
were making
something.
fun of McSherry because he weighs a little overweight. So I guess I didn't tell that story that great, but that's what it was. Ed McSherry was a large man, and I guess some people were throwing some F bombs at him, we'll call them, but not what you think F bombs,
Oh,
overweight bombs, and that's how it started. So
I got it.
sorry
I
I
got
butchered
it.
that story, but it came out of nowhere. I'm sorry about that. And it's an off subject too. So
That's all right.
well, it's okay. We can do that. We can break the rules. How about I'm
Hey,
going to break?
listen. Hey,
Okay.
hey, listen. At least you ended up getting out of Shea Stadium without some bruises or being battered. Because if you remember the way security used to be, that if they had to take you out, they threw some punches, some kicks, they threw you to the ground. Oh, I've seen that happen where
Oh
it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
even a police; it was like the security of, and they
Oh yeah.
just take you in the bowels of Shea Stadium and kick the crap out of you.
Yeah, they basically once we got through, they were just like, you just got to leave the stadium. They weren't yet that we were like totally, we had nothing. We
You're
weren't.
lucky. You're
No, it was
lucky.
more the umpire got mad at us, and I was just standing there than anything else. And it was because they went in and out. They got abused on the way in, and then on the way out, something happened, and anyway, my cousin probably said something, but for the umpire to actually try to challenge the fans in the run, it's just so funny. A different era. This was like in the '80s, and I was like a teenager when it happened. So I guess
Yeah.
it's a claim to fame. And the funniest thing is, my sister was actually at that game and
Oh,
saw us get thrown out of the game, which was even funnier. So
did she come with you to the game, or she came from
no, she was
Manhattan and meet
actually
you there?
there with like on business or something, and I was going with my cousin. Yeah, we had these great seats behind the plate. We had for a friend who
Wow.
had seats like that. A guy that got squeezed out when they went to Citi Field, he just said, "I can't do that," and they were just charged because he wanted to sit in the same seats he always had. He was like third row behind the plate or fourth row.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
when they moved to the new stadium, it was like the new, yeah, it was like it was like quadruple the amount of money. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, John, I wanted to break the rules again because this is going to close out our winter sports with a little rant of the week.
Yes, sir. And it has to do with the Knicks and Coach Thibodeau. So I've been listening to Charles Barkley, to any former NBA player, to announcers, to writers, lambasting Thibodeau for supposedly giving his players too many minutes, and that's why there are so many injuries. That's not what's causing the injuries, okay? Just take a look at the Knicks roster. Robinson has not played at all. He played like half the games, okay? He fractured his foot, not due to overuse. You have Julius Randle, who fell on his shoulder, dislocated it,
Yep.
not to overuse. You had Anunoby, okay, hurt his elbow. Now it's by the way, he is injury prone. This has nothing to do with overuse of the players. They're referring to the injury list. Oh, the Nick injury list, he makes them play 40, 45 minutes a game. None of these injuries. And Bogdanovich, same thing. Bad wrist. His leg was stepped on. Has nothing to do with overuse. So I wish that people would actually do their research for once in their lives. If you're going to make a blanket statement like that and saying, oh, the Knicks are shorthanded because of injuries and overuse, none of these injuries that they have right now are due to overuse. And again, Barkley does not know what he's talking about. He was getting me really, really angry because I said, buddy, if you follow the team, you know that none of these players, their injuries had to do with 40, 45 minutes a game.
Well,
Now, does Thibodeau use Josh Hart? Does he use
they're still playing.
Brunson? But you know what? He does. If you've been watching the Knicks this year, Brunson usually gets a rest at the end of the third quarter and about 3 or 4 minutes in the fourth quarter. So I don't really think, unless they go into overtime, then yes, they're all playing major minutes. But I really don't think he's been overusing them. And that's my rant of the week. I really am protesting a lot of these people who are saying all these things. I actually heard it from Gamal too. And if Gamal's listening, Gamal, I want you to really look at the players that are out. He did not overuse them.
Yeah, 100%. Barkley all these guys suffer from a little diarrhea of the mouth, John. You're right. They're not preparing. They're not thinking about what they're talking about. They're just trying to get the next joke. I mean, I can't watch those guys. Everything's about trying to get some bad laugh, and um, the analysis is lacking. But that's the reality. The one thing I will say about Tibbs is that there's no doubt this is a fact, right? Robinson got hurt in the Philly series during a game, and he did not take him out. And he let him continue to play when he was obviously hobbled. I don't understand where the trainer just doesn't step in and say, get him out of the game, and let's look at him for a minute and see how he's doing. Why let him hobble up and down the court? I'm sorry. That's the one. But the thing is, if Barkley explained it that way, he would have more credibility if he brought it up the example. But of course, he didn't.
But the funny thing is Robinson was out for so long, and even when he came back, he was limping. Even when he came back, I
Right,
mean,
right, right.
it didn't even look like he had recovered at all. He was like dragging his foot. He wasn't getting any extension in his jumping at all. Uh, I don't know. Maybe they thought that that's the way he normally runs, but
No,
he
but
didn't.
no,
He didn't look healthy even coming back.
no, right. That's like a different point, and you're right there. I agree with you. It's not based on overuse. Otherwise, obviously, Josh Hart would be hurt right now. So, I mean, maybe they're going to try to blame the Brunson thing. I'm just saying, I did see that in that one particular
Yeah,
situation. He let him
yeah.
play when he was hobbled, and it was obvious. And I just don't understand why the training staff doesn't have enough power. And again, it's talking about taking him out for a minute. It's like because the refs will stop the game if you're hobbling and you asking, and they're like, "Oh, get him off. He's hurt." They're
Right.
gonna let him get off. So just go to the side. I just don't get that. So Thibodeau, he does. Let's face it, he's got to take a hit on that one. But like I said, God forbid if somebody brings that into their analysis.
Yeah. And a couple of other things in the NBA that we didn't really speak about
Sure, go
is
for
the Suns just totally got rid of Vogel.
it. How many
I
times?
mean, they signed him to.
Yeah.
Boy, they're really throwing around money. These teams. They signed him at the beginning of this year to replace Monty Williams. 5 years, $31 million. They're eating the last 4 years. And who did they bring in? Is what's his name from the Bucks? Budenholzer
Yeah,
is their new coach, and they're spending even more money.
John,
So
we talk about this a lot with the coaching situation in the NBA and the NHL. It's just a absolute joke how these guys get fired so quickly and they rotate them. Everybody's the next great thing, and it's the same names. Frank Vogel, how many jobs has he had? He's had a bunch of jobs, right? So
amazing.
how about just getting some new blood? Give some person an opportunity. So that is, yeah, that's anything else in the NBA that we missed?
Well, the it, unbeknownst to many people, if they've been paying attention, is the draft order. What happened with the draft was crazy. The Atlanta ended up getting
Yeah,
the number one pick. They had a
right.
3% chance of getting the
Okay,
pick, and they got the number one pick.
that's a good one. I'm glad you brought that up because nobody kind of talked about that because there's no consensus pick, which luckily we did talk about that. And there's actually he's a Frenchman. I said he was a Euro, and I'll narrate. His name is Sarr, I think his last name Sarr, who is and there's two guys from France that are top 10 potential picks. So yeah, we'll get what the draft. Yeah, we still have a little time there because we should talk about it because we love college hoops and I
Yeah.
got a little prediction for one of my Baylor Bears. I'll save that for a further episode.
The funny thing is, I actually watched that draft show because it was right before the Nick game, and they actually had some of the college players that are going to be in the first round, maybe,
Hmm.
and a lot of them were smiling and high fiving each other, and then when they started seeing the order of the picks, some of them were thinking in their minds, "Oh, I'm going to be going to this team if I'm." When the Hawks ended up getting the first round pick, I didn't see a smile in the place when it came to the players. They were down. I was like, the Hawks are not such a bad team. They're not a bad organization. It was amazing. It went from
well,
smiles to just
well,
grim.
as a sports town, I don't know. Atlanta's not in your top echelon of sports town. I know there's a little bias there. But yeah, no, the draft, that's always fun. We'll definitely talk about that.
I have one more thing.
Well, one more in NBA because we got to get to a little NFL.
One
All
more
right, quick,
very
quick.
quick. So someone asked me,
Okay.
when did you start following the Knicks? Someone asked me this question. And I'm thinking back, I officially started following the Knicks in 1975. So it's
75.
almost
Okay.
so it's almost 50 years for me that I haven't seen the Knicks win a championship. And I remember that my favorite player back then was Bob McAdoo. If you remember Bob McAdoo,
Of course, Bob
great,
McAdoo.
great scorer.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hall of
what's
Famer, right?
amazing,
He's a Hall of
huh?
Famer. He's a Hall of
Oh yeah,
Famer.
he's a Hall of Fame. Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. The funny thing is that when the Knicks traded him, if you remember, he went to the Celtics. If you remember that trade.
Yeah, it was late in his career, right? I
Yeah,
guess.
and we ended up getting 3 first-round picks out of it.
Okay.
So
All right.
we ended up getting Sly Williams, Larry Demick, and Bill Cartwright.
Okay.
I
All
mean,
right.
3 first-round picks, and some guy Tom Barker, which he didn't stay very long.
Tom
But
Barker. Wow. Okay.
but you want to talk about how uh, slick the Celtics were. So they had McAdoo. They ended up sending him to the Pistons for the number one. And if you remember that whole Joe Barry Carroll trade that they made, where
Right. Okay.
they ended up getting Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale out of a trade for Bob McAdoo
Right.
eventually.
Right. Right.
So,
That's how
uh,
great franchises are built, John. That's how it
oh
works.
man, it was crazy. But McAdoo was my favorite player. I mean, it was my father used to take us there, and if you remember when we used to go in high school, where you could go on the Long Island Railroad for $1.75, and we used to get those student tickets in
Three
the blue
bucks.
section, three
Yeah.
bucks,
Three
three
bucks.
bucks.
There you go,
So
John. There you go. Well, we're telling a lot of old stories, getting thrown out of baseball stadiums, going to see a game for 3 bucks. These people are like, these guys are really old. So, but we got to talk a little NFL, and it almost could be another rant. The ESPN tonight, the 2 hour special of the NFL schedule being released. And
that's
this
right.
is something I find very humorous, why everybody makes a big deal. Like I could just check my phone and see the Jets schedule. Actually, it was leaked out earlier today. We'll see how good this guy's leaks were. So good for him. But we already know the Jets are opening up on the road on Monday night again, which is, as a football fan, is the worst, where you have to go through opening day of football and you're not playing, and then you got to play on Monday. So we know the Jets are playing the 49ers first. I think schedule's probably out already, folks. Just go check it out. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Everyone goes nuts. The guy that had the leak, John, had them playing a ton of specialty games, including 2 on Thursday night, which is kind of insane.
Well, and they actually have them playing the Vikings in Europe.
Right, and that is actually a Minnesota home game for people counting that, looking in, because again, if you're a Jet fan and you're losing a home game to Europe, you're not happy. So yeah, they're going to play in London. So John, like I said, the league schedule this guy had, obviously opening night on Monday. There's 2 Thursday night games. There's the 9:30 a.m. on Sunday, and then there's a Sunday night game too. In the first 8 weeks, they were like playing at a weird time, like 6 out of the weeks. It's like,
And
and it's just all on the hype of Aaron Rodgers Part Two. So anyway, folks, I know everyone's excited because everyone loves the NFL, and we had to talk about this. And the Giants, I guess, their other story, not really schedule related, they're going to be on Hard Knocks off season. Did you hear about that?
no, I did not hear that.
Okay, so the Giants, for the Giant fans out there, they're going to have same thing, Hard Knocks with the New York Giants, but it's going to be during the off season, which actually could be very interesting because it's obviously going to relate to the team building aspect of it as opposed to on the field stuff. So it actually should be pretty good. A lot of Joe Shane. Brian Daboll, John, lost like how much? Did you see how much weight he lost? Good
Yep,
for
yep.
him. I think, John, we talked about this. I think other people in his life talked to him and said, Crazy Man Dayball, as you are known on that great show, Bouk and Zoobie, when people start saying that about you, you got to start making some changes. So I am going to give Brian Dayball a timeout now from this nickname, John, because he's lost a lot of weight. I'm happy for the guy. I hope he tones it down because I'm sure he's a really good good coach who may not be head coaching material. So good luck to him.
Yeah, yeah. And if Parcells can do it, he could do it. If you remember, Parcells, when he was coaching, ended up losing a lot of weight.
Right.
And
His big thing was fig Newtons. I remember he loved, and which was
yeah,
a cookie
yeah.
that I used to love too. I haven't had one in about, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 years now. Do you like the
I,
old fig Newton, John?
no, I actually have a fig tree in my
Fig tree.
backyard, and I actually have pure figs, and I eat a ton of them when,
You-
it's usually
Right.
July or August. So
Is
if
that
you
it?
ever
So
if you ever over here, you
yes.
got to get some figs.
Wow, I don't know if I'd like the fig on its own, John. I need the Newton around it. That's like the whole part. That's the whole fun part, we'll call it. So, yeah, a lot about old stories, some fig Newton stuff. But so anything else from the
Yeah,
NFL you want to throw out there? Or you
yeah.
want
What
to finish?
about Goff getting that
Oh,
huge contract?
my God.
4 years, $212 million extension with $170 million guaranteed. This is like another Daniel Jones contract, only he's much better than Daniel Jones, but still, 212 million for Jared Goff.
Can you win the big game first and then pay him? That's my view on that.
Wow.
And a lot of people praised it, like but a lot of people didn't. The numbers are getting crazy, John. The numbers are getting crazy. This is basically a fully guaranteed deal for that period of time. And when you sign a guy like Cousins to $100 million guarantee, you got to at least be 2 years minimum, 50 million a year. And this same sort of thing, right? He has to now play 4 years at like 50 million to make it worthwhile. I mean, maybe I'm wrong with the numbers, but the point is, you need longevity out of Goff, and I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback personally. Some people love him. I don't know. I can't. He's
He's
been to the Super
good.
Bowl, so
He's good. He's good.
yeah.
But $212 million,
What did
four
We have to
years,
like look Mahomes.
170 million guaranteed.
I know. What did Mahomes get? He must be losing his mind when he sees that deal. So we got to look back at
Wow.
the
Yeah,
Patrick
he's going to
Mahomes.
renegotiate. Yeah, he's going to renegotiate. It'll be 70 million a year for him if Goff gets this. Wow. And,
That
and,
is
and one other thing
yes.
I think we need to mention about the Jets is that they're playing only 8 home games this year and 9 away games.
Yeah, that alternates. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're playing the AFC South and NFC West this year.
Right.
The
Yeah.
whole
So
each division.
they have a competitive schedule. It's all about the division with this franchise. There was some funny graphic that they put up that I don't know who had it, but believe it or not, when it came to AFC championships, AFC East championships, divisional championships, out of 14 division, the Jets are fifth because the
Wow,
Colts used to be in that division
that's right.
and they had championships. So the Jets are fifth out of four. So we started the show with the Rangers 94, the Knicks 1970, the Jets pretty much the Super
73,
Bowl
73.
73. I'm sorry, as I said, I was their first one 73. Sorry, and the Jets 1970, technically the 69 season. So there's only one franchise left, John, that we have not talked about yet, and another long, long time. Say, I think it was 1986. So it's time for baseball with Bouk.
The Mets. How can I describe the Mets right now?
500 team.
No, they're
If
actually under
I
500
I know
now.
how many games? How many games?
Unfortunate, 3 now.
Three.
They're under 3.
Okay.
Uh, the loss that they had with Diaz is a pretty brutal one. As you can see, Mr. Zubulake, he does not. He is very, very rusty. That was the prime. If you were watching that, that
Hmm.
was exactly what I've been trying to tell people. He is rusty.
All
He's
right.
all over the place. He was throwing hard, He was able to strike out people, but he just had no control over anything.
Yeah.
And we lost that game when we had it in our hands. The good thing that I'm very happy that they did, and I called this a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about Wendell, that Wendell really is the, you know,
First
uh,
man out.
he's out. He's DFA'd, and they brought up Vientos. Very happy about that. They brought up Lucchese, and a guy that they just recently claimed back from the Orioles was this guy Ramirez. He
He's
was sold to the Orioles, and then the Orioles released him. The Mets brought him back, and now the Mets have released him. They're eating a lot of salary here. I mean, the Wendell deal, they signed him for $2 million. I mean, they made I have to give him credit because I said,
you
Wendell's
called
not
it.
the same. Yeah, he was not
Good
the
job.
same, and gone, gone. I'm happy that they got rid of him because Vientos does deserve to be up here, and we do need some type of power. I don't.
Yeah, they need a bat.
I don't. It's
John.
Martinez actually
Yeah.
looks pretty old. His bat looks very heavy. When I see him swinging, he's behind on pitches. He's swinging at pitches out of the strike zone. This is not the JD Martinez that I know. The only thing that he's good at doing is hitting catcher's arms, which he ended up breaking Contreras' arm, and poor guy's going to be out for a couple of months.
I know.
But
It's
but that was catcher's interference anyway.
right.
And then you have Alonso, who is just lost. Again, they try to say, oh, he has 9 home runs and he has power. Pete Alonso does not come through in the clutch. Pete Alonso, as we've been saying, is worrying about his contract. And I was looking at the contracts now, okay? They actually came out with this story in the middle of the week, last week, that Alonso was offered by the Mets 7 years, $158 million, which comes out to about $22.5 million a year. This was before he hired Boris, and he turned it down.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, okay, let's compare it with Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson's contract. So Olson got an 8-year, $168 million contract. Freeman at 6 years, $162 million. Are you going to compare Pete Alonso with Freddie Freeman? He should say to the
Yeah.
Mets, guys, you know what? I'm going to reconsider that. I'll take the offer.
Yes. Is that deal still on the table? Unfortunately, that deal is no longer on the table.
Just like
John.
Michael Conforto made the same mistake. Mets offered him before free agency 5 years. I think it was $110 million, and he turned it down. And what ends up happening? He gets hurt, misses a year, signs a 2-year contract with the Giants for $18 million a year. I mean, these guys are making really, really bad judgments on what they're going to get on an open market because right now, and this is not an insult to Dave Kingman, but he has Dave Kingman like numbers, very low average, and to be honest, his defense has not been very good. This is going to be a tough decision for them, and you and I've
I
been
don't.
talking about it. He
Yeah, I
looks
don't think it's
worse
tough.
and worse by the day. He looks
John.
worse and worse by the day.
John, the decision's been made. I think they offered him a really good deal. He didn't take it. He's performed poorly since then. They're not. There's no way that deal's available anymore. Boris is telling them you can get somebody to pay you that. It's possible because all it takes is one franchise to give a guy like Pete Alonso that sort of money. So, but at the same time, Pete Alonso could be sitting here next year looking at a 2-year deal. So it can go both ways with this stuff. So I think the Mets now are going to be able to tell their fans that in the end they're going to be right about Pete Alonso. But the problem is, John, I said at the beginning of the season, one, the roster wasn't good enough. The outfield is not good enough. They're not bad players. They're not top level players. So that's one thing. The pitching is overachieved. The
Yeah.
bullpen is wildly overachieved, right? Reed Garrett, the guy continues, correct?
Yes,
Uh,
he's been
and,
fantastic.
and one of the big losses they took, was Alvarez getting hurt. I mean, and now
Yeah.
you're seeing, I mean, Narvaez, talk about, is he next to go? I mean, what are they
He
going to do
needs to
there?
go. He absolutely. If I were the Mets right now, release him, eat his money, bring up Parada, all these draft picks that
What?
they have. Bring him up. Time to bring him up.
Yeah, this team
Just
is
like they
not going.
brought up Vientos, bring up the young guys now.
They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. I mean, it's still early though. It's mid-May, so and you're right about Diaz. His command is really off. You're right about his stuff being decent enough. Still not what he had, but he can definitely get back to that. It's definitely a command issue. Hopefully, he'll work it out. I think you're right with the summer months. But look, John, he was pitching at such a high level, Diaz. He was literally what his blown saves were like under 5, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
was ridiculous. That's phenomenal. So he might go back to between 5 and 10 blown saves in a season. That's where most of the league is.
And the funny thing is, it's not so funny, is the Mets pitching staff. Um, Manaya's been pitching well. Severino's been pitching well.
Yeah, you have.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, the other guys here and there. I mean, they're going to bring back McGill soon. Again, Scott pitched reasonably well. I mean, he only gave up 3 runs. Everyone says, "Oh, it was not such a great start." He only gave 3 runs to the Atlanta Braves.
Right.
He
It
did.
wasn't,
He
I didn't
did
see it,
well.
but his numbers
Yeah.
weren't bad. Yes, good
Yeah.
for
No, he
that's
did
good.
well.
For
So
pitching.
I think what they should really be thinking about seriously is start bringing up some of this young talent, because there are some pitchers that are ready for to be promoted to the major league side, but I don't. It doesn't seem like they're in a rush to do that, because they could definitely trade off Quintana to a contender. I mean, they really
Yeah.
have to seriously
Yeah.
start thinking about some of these guys that are just trading them off and getting more prospects, because Quintana really, he says, "Oh, I would love to stay with the Mets." Yeah, my friend, you're gone after this year. Okay, next. I mean, there's
John,
just
they're gonna have a fire. They're not gonna. I'm not gonna say fire sale. They're gonna be sellers. I expect Alonso and Jeff McNeil to get dealt. I think Quintana is a good one that you just brought up. I think those guys are going to get moved, John. They're making a McNeil. They can move that contract. You're this youth movement that they're claiming they want. This is the opportunity to clean out some of the veteran guys. Nimmo and Lindor are here. They're going nowhere. No one's taking those contracts from the Mets. They're good players. They're here. John, everybody else, what's your best
McNeil.
offer?
You talk about someone who looks lost. McNeil he's an automatic out. I mean, we spoke
Oh,
about him last week.
yeah, yeah. We
He's
had the
he's
comment. Yeah.
he's he's getting worse. There's no power. He's not even getting base hits. He's getting a lot of these things are bloops. I don't know. Someone needs to work with that guy, because he just totally looks lost up
I
there.
think
Lost.
he got that car from Lindor, and that was the peak, John. That was the peak. He finally cashed in. So anything we got to mention the Yankees, and I wanted to give you one compliment about a guy that you mentioned pre-season with the Yankees, Gil. You even made the comment. I don't know how they pronounce it. Do we know how to pronounce his name? One, and great call. The guy is pitching great for the Yankees, where John, it's becoming a mathematical equation on under 91 and a half. I'm in big trouble at under 91 and a half. I'll tell you that much. So what do you got for those Yankee fans out there with what's happening?
I think my prediction about Nestor Cortez is going to come true. He'll be out of the rotation very, very soon when Cole comes in. Cortez has not been pitching well. He actually does not pitch well on the road at all. He pitches all right at Yankee Stadium, but listen, if you want to call him Gil, whatever you call him, he's pitching great. Schmidt is pitching wonderfully. They have some good arms on that team. I have to say the Yankees look much better starting pitching wise than they have in years with young guys. Rodon is it's hit or miss every game with that guy. It's hit or miss. But Cortez will be out soon. Will be out. But as far as their offense, Soto, Judge got out of his slump and is just hitting home runs left and right. Even Stanton looks good now. Stanton looks like the Stanton of old. So
That's bad news for the AL East, where I guess what the O's are still technically, are they still leading that division?
yes, yes they are. Yes they
So
are.
are they, so the cream of the, because Houston has obviously fallen off a cliff incredibly.
Wow.
So, and it's been like, what, the Guardians are playing well, right? Is that they're up, right?
It's true. It's
So,
true.
so I'm
The
not to put you on the spot, but who is your, have you been watching enough? I know how you're watching all this sports. That'd be pretty crazy if you're watching any of these games between like Milwaukee and Cincinnati, but or even in the American League. Who are the big shock? Because we're a quarter of the way through. Who's the most shocking team in your opinion out there on the upside?
right now, well, the shock for me on
The
the
shock side, yeah.
downside are the Astros. The
No, right, right.
Astros are playing like
The
I
upside.
think as far as the upside, I think right now would be I'm actually surprised by how well the Detroit Tigers are playing.
Oh, they are
The-
playing well, right?
yeah, they have some nice young players on that team. Other than that they're stuck with Javi Baez on that team, but they have some good young talent on that team. The Tigers, they're very surprising. The Orioles haven't really surprised me at all, uh, and the Twins, hot
They're playing
streak.
well.
I mean, they won 12 in a row there. I think they were the last 20 games. I think they were like 17-3. So they're kind of playing over their heads because I really didn't think that they were going to be that good.
Right.
So
That's another good one.
um, as
And the
far as the
National League,
National League, the Phillies,
yeah.
I just think that usually they hit this stride towards the end of the year. They look like they've already hit their stride, and they may get over 100 wins this year. The Phillies
Oh boy.
with
The
with two
Mets,
former Met pitchers, starting
John.
pitchers.
John, the Mets are in big trouble with the Phillies and the Braves and their division in the future. It is not looking good. So enough about that. Enough about everything. We're so happy to do a show. It's been a while. There's been so much to talk about. So we really appreciate everybody watching and listening. And who do you got to thank, John, before we go watch some other games, I guess?
Oh, by the way, your favorite player. One last thing before I
Yeah.
thank everyone. You remember Luis Guillorme, where he signed a 1-year contract with the Braves?
Yes.
Actually traded to the I think they do
Yeah.
call them California Angels or Anaheim Angels, whatever they
The
call them.
Los
LA,
Angeles Angels,
Los
one of the
Angeles
three,
Angels.
whatever they
Yeah.
are. No one
And
cares.
Zach Short, who we got rid of, ends up getting released, and then the Braves sign him.
Oh, well, great. And they he'll be like, in
And
the
now
World
he's going to
Series.
become a
There you go.
superstar now. Yeah,
All right. Well,
watch.
what a way to end the show with Guillorme and Zach Short. So let's thank everybody, and we'll talk about other stuff next week.
Yes, sir. As always, thank you to our producer, Zach Zubulake, and to our loyal listeners and viewers. We love the feedback. We love the comments. Keep it coming. And also, thanks to our community partners, Ronald McDonald House Kids and Seats and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week, and go Knicks and go Rangers.